we're about to have this interesting session. It's a panel discussion on GSOC. And I'm going to be introducing Amanda Kasari and Samson Godi. Please put your hands together for them as they come on stage.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming. This is actually, we're going to expand the scope of the talk a little bit because we've got folks who've participated in a number of programs. So we're going to be talking today about open source internship programs, things that you can become a part of to get started in open source, as well as different ways that it goes about it. So not every program we're talking about is a program with code. Some of them are documentation, some of them are creating other ways. So if you're interested in knowing how you can get started in open source and get paid to do it, this is a great way that you can learn about getting started. And so I'm going to have each of the panelists introduce themselves. They're going to say what they're currently working on, as well as the program that they'll be talking about.
Yeah. My name is Peace Ojeme, fondly known as Perry. I am a service and experience designer. I'm currently leading the design team at Open Source Community Africa, and I'm also a design contributor at Sugar Labs. Sugar Labs is a volunteer-driven organization. We build and maintain Sugar, a desktop learning environment for kids.
Hi, everyone. I am Gloria Gatevuri. I am currently interning with Outreach, with Wikimedia to be precise. And I'm currently contributing to their Wiki Education dashboard application. I'm a software developer.
Hi everyone, my name is Edidio Ngasipo, but you can call me Didi if you can pronounce my name. I am a software engineer at InterSwitch, and I currently serve as a technical writer for VideoLAN. So VideoLAN is the company that owns the VLC media player. I'm sure you guys know about it. So I contribute to them as a technical writer.
Hi everyone, my name is Favor Kelvin. I was a former Google Summer of Code student for Sugar Labs. Sugar Labs is a community where we develop Sugar, which is a desktop application for children.
Hello, I'm Cecilia, but everyone calls me Cess. I'm from Nairobi. I'll be talking about Public Lab, which is an organization where I mentor GSOC and also GCI. Public Lab is a public wiki where researchers do researches and document them there, and you can build on top of that.
Hi, my name is Kawesi Joseph. I'll be talking about Google Summer of Code. I'm a mentor from OpenMRS. OpenMRS is a medical record system, currently a framework. We house at least more than 8 million patient data, and we are in about, I think it's more than 3,000 installations worldwide. Yeah.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Samson Godi. I'm a co-founder for Open Source Community Africa. And as related to this subject, I maintain a project called Sugar is a Desktop. Serve as a mentor and a student for both Google Summer of Code and Google Coding.
Thanks, everyone. And so just quick overview of the different programs. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, the Google Summer of Code is a global program to bring more student developers into open source software. So the applications actually open up in March. You can go take a look right now and see what organizations have been approved in the project you're going to be working on. And you'll want to contact them to start talking to them about the projects you could possibly be collaborating with. So far, it's been happening for 15 years. So Google Summer of Code has operated for 15 years, and in that time, we've worked with 15,000 students, 12,000 mentors in 118 countries around the world. And I would love for this event to be the start of Nigeria having the highest participation of any country in the world. So we're going to talk a little bit about the application process to get you started. And then at the very end, all of these people are going to be at the back so that you can ask them questions and contact them. They want to work with you and help you get through this process. So in addition to that, Google Code-In is the contest that introduces 13 to 17-year-olds pre-university students into open source software dev. So that program just ended. They just announced all of the winners for the program because it is a contest. In 2019, there were over 3,500 students from 76 countries. And that will be happening. That happens in kind of the fall and the winter. So if you're a pre-university student or you know a pre-university student, you can get them started on this program and they can win a global contest. And the last is a season of docs, which is a newer program. It just started in 2019. If you've been a part of any of the conversations so far and documentation sounds like something you're interested in getting started from being a technical writer, it's similar to Summer of Code, but it's a long-running project where you get to mentor and work with technical writers and commit to open source documentation. And so I want to make sure that everybody here gets a chance to talk about their experience. So I'm going to ask a few questions. We're going to go through the panelists. And then at the very end, if you have any questions, we're going to be all the way in the back. So the first question I have for you fine group of people is, how did you hear about the program that you worked with? And can you talk just a little bit about the application process?
I never did Summer of Code as a student. As you go to the application process, I started using Linux when I was like 8. And it was so kind of like easy for me to start breaking things, like, trying to like modify apps on the desktop environment. And obviously, I got to find out about the organization behind the software called Sugar Labs. So at some point, I heard about the program called Google Coding. So I started as a student for Google Coding in 2013, which I think is kind of easy to get started with because you don't necessarily need to send any proposal to become a student. Because at some point, I was obviously under the age of 18. So I started playing around, submitting patches, trying to make sure that I contribute as much as I can to win a T-shirt, because that was the goal, to just get one Google swag. That was something that was kind of a motivation for me. But at some point, I noticed that I can do more. So I became a student for a couple of years, and then I switched after I became a core maintainer for the project, which currently deploy over 2 million devices all around the world. Then started becoming a mentor, which I think I met Joseph. It's funny because I met Joseph in 2017 in Dubai when we were going to Mountain View to the Google Summer of Code Mentor Summit. So that was at that point when I became really active with GSAC.
Unlike Samson, I've actually never been a student in Google Coding, neither have I been a student in Google Summer of Codes. I met Samson in 2017 where we started talking about technology. It was a very, very funny conversation. But then we started talking about Sugar Labs and what Sugar Labs is doing with kids and education. And it was something that actually like drew my attention. So I checked out Sugar Labs and I noticed that they needed a lot of this. So I started contributing to Sugar Labs. So while I was there, Sugar Labs got accepted to the Google Coding program. So I messaged the founder, Walter Bender, and like, hey, why don't we have design contributors make designs for Sugar Labs? And it's like, cool. And then we just set out design contributions. I became a mentor for Google Coding. When just like, hey Perry, don't you? And then that's how I just got into the program. And I've mentored for like 3 years, 2017 to 18, 2017 to 18 to 19 for GCI, then 2018 to 19 for Google Summer of Code, yeah.
All right, so on my end, talking about how I got started with outreaching. First of all, I thought about outreaching from So when I got the information about outreaching on the WhatsApp group, I decided to check it out. So I went to the website, checked their requirements, and I met most of the requirements. I'm not a student, I'm a graduate. So outreaching is actually open to everyone, irrespective of who you are. You don't need to be a student. Anybody, as long as you are ready and willing to contribute, so it's open. And so it was really good for me. I saw it as an opportunity because GSOC was meeting, and it was limited in the sense that it was focused on students. So people that are not students might not really have the opportunity to contribute on GSOC. So outreach for me was one of the best things that has happened to me in a long while.
Okay, so I participated in the Google Season of Docs program, which, like Amanda said, started last year. So I followed the Google open source team on Twitter. So that's when I saw that they initiated a new program called Google Season of Docs. And when I read through like the requirements, I realized that the only thing you needed to show was that you already have experience as a technical writer. So in my head, I was like, okay, I think I've written like 1 or 2 articles, so I can do this. And then how it works is when you go, you see like different organizations, and then each organization has different projects that they want you to contribute to. So you just need to pick the organization that fits in line with what you want to do, or maybe an organization that you already know a lot to contribute to. So I saw the Video Land organization, which, like I mentioned earlier, they are the owners of VLC. And if I'm not mistaken, I've been using VLC Media Player since I was like in secondary school. So I was like, oh wow, like I literally didn't know that organization was an open source organization, but then it was just something cool to do. So usually when you pick the organization you want to contribute to, they have different projects. So you pick the project you want to contribute to, which I chose writing a documentation for VLC Media Player, like for the users. So when you pick that project, you choose, most organizations have like certain groups. So for Video Land, it was IRC. So I joined the IRC channel and said that, hey, I actually wanted to contribute to this particular project, and a maintainer was there to help me out. So I did a lot of research, knew why they wanted to move their documentation from Wiki to Sphinx, and then I wrote a proposal and explained, okay, hey, why do I want to work on this project? Why do I think I'm the best person to work on the project? Added links like the experience I had as a technical writer, and just why I thought that giving me the opportunity would be a great thing to do. So that's how I found out about Google Season of Dogs, and that's how I applied.
On my own end, I started coding 2018, May 2018, and I met Samson, Perry, Yoma, and in the meetup, Samson talked about Google Summer of Code and OSS programs, and I had to meet him, and I was like, what's that? And he explained, and I was encouraged to apply. My friends encouraged me to apply. I didn't want to apply because I felt I just started coding, and I shouldn't. But I did anyways, and it was a very interesting process. I had to get familiar with the community. I started sending pull requests, got merged, I made corrections when I had to. It was a learning process, and during the period of Google Summer of Code, I sent my proposal, and I was selected.
Okay, so as for me, as a Google Summer of Code mentor, I participated right after I finished my internship with Outreach with the same organization, and then there was a call for mentors for the Google Summer of Code. So the process was you must have made a contribution to the project, uh, created a first-timer issue, and also reviewed a pull request. And then after that, you had to do a couple of questions where they would ask how long you are available for within the week and which project you'd like to mentor. And then after that, you are assigned to a student to work with.
If you've been around OpenMRS, you know him, Ms. Kaiwa. So I met him while I was just planning to go to university. And he got me interested into Google's Summer of Code. He told me, well, Joseph, do you know that you can pay for your own university tuition? And he said, yes, here is a Google program that gives you $5,500 for work done within 3 months. And of course, I knew with that amount of money, I was able to pay for almost 2 years of my tuition back in Uganda where I live. And so I got interested in the program, started reading about programming, was introduced to OpenMRS, and that's how I found myself applying for Google Summer of Code in the year 2013. It didn't actually work out to be very successful. I was rejected. I was very frowning, you know. And when I was rejected, I almost gave up, but I didn't. So I worked my way, continued contributing to the same organization, OpenMRS, and in 2014 and 2015, I became successful and I worked on a project. If you know OpenMRS, it's a patient search tool. It's called Chat Search. So I wrote that for the 2 years. It's very highly used currently around the world. It was overwhelming, the impact. From there, in 2016, when OpenMRS started taking part in Google coding, I was interested, so I started mentoring, and I've been mentoring since then. 2017, again within OpenMRS, I was an administrator for the Google Summer of Code program, and still 2018 upwards, I've been mentoring the Google Summer of Code program. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I think I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm hoping that you can all tell us one thing each that you learned from the experience that you had either as a student or as a mentor.
Okay, I'll just make this quick. So coming from, I think it would be much easier for me to comment as a mentor because I think I've been a mentor longer than a student. So as a mentor, if you're looking to convince an organization to trust you for roughly 3 to 4 months, you need to try to do something called community bonding. And that is a process where you figure out a project, an open source project, try it as much as you can to read the documentation on how to get started. Try as much as you can to look for the primary contact of communication. It can be IRC. I highly doubt it might be a little bit of Slack, but mostly IRC and maybe Zulip. Just look for the primary contacts of the actual organization. So at Sugar Labs, what we use something called IRC. It's a very old-fashioned way of communicating, but it's more structured when it comes to having internet bandwidth. So you need to get closer to the organization because that makes it much easier for the mentors or the people within the community. So personally, I've been part of the GSOC and the GCI projects combined for like 7-8 years, which is crazy. And one thing I've learned is the ability for you to be so transparent about your skill set. Try as much as you can not to put too many things. Just look at the project, focus on the technology, and make a proposal based on your strength and the project. It's so easy for you to just get accepted, not just come and list 20 programming language and the rest.
So personally, from the program, I've learned how to manage people because we are dealing Google coding is like kids, and then Google Summer of Code like a more matured group. So I've kind of like learned how to balance the age difference, the different backgrounds, the different ethnic groups, different experiences, the different proficiencies among these individuals, and learned to give very constructive feedbacks to these students for them to actually get out the output I want. So it's kind of like understanding the kind of students I'm working with and then trying to give them constructive feedbacks, getting them to get to that point where they have to get to. And then I've learned to encourage people a lot because sometimes most of the students get discouraged, especially when it's almost the time for the evaluation. They're like, oh, I can't move on, I have to stop. So you have to start encouraging them. You can do this, just have to do this and that. So as a student, if you are planning to apply for an organization, I'd say your proposal needs to be very detailed. The organization has to understand that you know about that particular project and like you just have every little details you need. So if you're applying for a project that needs of user flow, it's best for you to actually draft out a very low fidelity user flow to just show that you actually understand what that project is about. It kind of like gives us the conviction that, oh yeah, this student can actually do this job properly. So for students trying to apply, first get used to the organization, like Samson said, then get your proposals right. Convince us that you can pick up that project.
All right, so I'm not sure I'll be able to have the chance to do this again, so I'll just say this now. So for outreachy, I know that quite a lot of persons are really interested in participating in outreachy. So what you need to do, first of all, is as far as the application process is concerned, it's very important for you to go through the first stage, that's the initial application, to do it very well, like fill the form, take the essays very well, answer the questions in a very good way that can give you a chance. And aside that, while you are waiting for you to get response or feedback from them, it's a good time for you to start contributing. already there are organizations already listed on the website. You could check them out, check their projects on GitHub and see anyone that pique your interest and see how you can start contributing to those projects. And like I would always like to say, I noticed that some persons are more concerned about the community or the organization itself instead of the stack that they're actually going to do in that organization. So my advice will be that whenever you're checking out organization, always check your strengths, your skill sets, what you know you can do. Don't just go for an organization because the organization is popular or because you have been hearing so much about it. Go for something you know you can actually handle, matching it with your skill sets. So that is very important. And like some of us already know, for those that have gone through the website, the application process is divided into 3 stages. You have the initial application, the contribution, and the internship itself. So passing the first stage is not a guarantee that you are already an intern. So that means if you get a chance to be accepted after the initial stage, it's another round of work that you have to do. So that means to say, by the time you are allowed to start contributing, it's very competitive, I must say, because there are a lot of persons also applying for this, even outside of this country. So what I would say is that when you have a chance to contribute, try to give in your best, try to contribute as much as you can. So outreach is almost like a full-time job. So that means to say you have to give it as much time as you can, because I know the challenges that most people go through is because they don't give it much time. And before you know it, they are not able to skate through a particular stage, or probably even during their initial application, the way they answer the questions, it's obvious to outreach that this person will not have the time for this. So you have to be very careful, and at the same time, contribute as much as you can, because your contribution counts. It matters a lot, and quality contribution, it's also very important. I don't want to stress the word quality, but probably later on you could ask. So in the internship, personally, I've learned how to communicate. Whenever I have issues, I know who to contact. I always reach out for help, so I don't keep it to myself. So it's one of the skills I've actually learned. And also, I've learned how to write better code that I can be proud of, that I can show to anybody, because what I currently have, everybody are using it all over the world, and it's something to be proud of at least.
Okay, so for Google Season of Docs, I think the most important thing I learned is you don't have to be a superstar or like a really smart person to get accepted into the programs. So you don't, so Google Season of Docs, you have to be a technical writer. You have to show proof that you've been writing before. So for instance, Google is going to open sometime in July or August, if I'm not mistaken. So it means that you still have an opportunity to start writing now. And even if you've published like 1 article or 2 articles, it doesn't mean you need to publish like 100 before you can classify yourself as a technical writer. I think another so important thing that I've also learned was like the best way to communicate with mentors and also be patient, because some organizations have mentors who are actually volunteers, right? It's not like their full-time job. So most times it's hard for them to respond to you when you drop comments and all that. So I've learned how to be patient and wait for the mentors to respond whenever it's time. And I've also learned how to be like a better technical writer. I noticed that the only way you learn is to learn by doing. So if you think you don't know something too much, or you're not so smart, or there are people that are way smarter than you, it's a big lie. You just need to try and put an effort and get to it. And most importantly, I also learned that you shouldn't give up, right? So I tried to apply for Google Summer of Code at one time, and I didn't get accepted. I tried Outreachy and also didn't get accepted. But it didn't mean like I didn't stop there. I decided to keep trying. And then the most important thing about this is all the experience you learn from participating in previous sessions that you didn't get accepted for, you get to add it in your next proposal. So you're not like, hey, I did this with this organization. Nobody cares if you did it and submitted a proposal and failed, right? They just care that you're able to do some certain amount of things with a particular organization, and then it makes your proposal stronger. So even if you try it the first time and you don't get accepted, don't give up. A lot of people have failed and tried again. You definitely get it there someday.
So, on my own end, what my experience was for proposals, you need to do your homework once you're picking a project, you don't have to pick a project and you don't know anything about that project. Even if you don't know everything, you need to go and research and try to convince the organization that you can actually work on this for the period of 3 months, because the Google Summer of Code is on 3 months, and you need to be committed because you're committing your time, your energy, your data, everything for the period of 3 months. You can't pick a project and leave it. The organization, you will fail your evaluations, and eventually you won't even get the money. So once you pick a project, you know you have to be committed for the 3 months and work. I don't know, different organizations have different ways they do things. Where I did mine, every week we have to give a rundown of everything we did throughout the week. And of course, if it's something like that and you don't do it, during your evaluations, you won't get accepted and you won't get the money. You eventually be kicked out of the program. So that's what thing people feel. They actually get accepted and they don't even put the effort to complete the program. So that is one thing. And your proposal, you need to do your homework, you need to make research, you need to convince them that you make out the time and you actually know, even if you're not 100% perfect in the stack that you're working on, you need to actually let them know that you're willing to learn. You're willing to learn this during the period of the project. And another advice is that you don't really need to be 100% smart, just like she said. You don't need to be a 10x engineer, a 10x whatever. You actually just need to know the basics of whatever you want to do and your willingness to learn. That's just the most important thing. And community bonding. Community bonding helps facilitate them getting you accepted. Once you bond with the community, you go to the website, check organizations that previously do Google Summer of Code, try to pick the one that matches your stack and get to connect to the members in the organizations. Start to send pull requests, open issues, join their main list and all that. Try to let them know you, so that when that period comes, once you write a proposal, they'll eventually want to give to someone that they somehow trust, someone that has been previously contributing time to the organization, than someone who has not made just one contribution. Even if it's just changing like typos, just that small thing can actually make them want to pick you. But someone who has not made even the slightest contribution, they might not want to pick you. They want to give to someone who they trust. So that's like another thing. Community bonding is very, very important, because you could write a proposal and then they might pick someone else which has been contributing because they know that person can actually code. You actually need to show them, see, I can actually work on this. That's just my advice.
Okay, so as a mentor, I learned how to point the students to the right direction rather than giving them solution, and also having to give them a lot of ideas and letting them to a lot of options and letting them choose what they want to work with. At the same time, having to make the whole process as a discussion rather than delegating what they should do. Asking things like, what do you think, giving my solution and asking, does this make sense to you, and making the whole space comfortable for them to give your ideas and build on top of what you have.
From my end, I think the greatest lesson I have had to learn through these programs is impact. There is great impact. As a student, not only having to clear my school or university tuition was impactful enough, but also being able to create something that would evolve and be used worldwide. And I see the impact that was so marvelous and transforming. As a mentor, I've worked with a number of students still worldwide, and I've seen great projects come into our project through the program. So there is great impact. And anything else I can say, that's all that I've learned that exceeds everything else.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. So I just want to thank everybody that was on the panel for not only sharing your experience, but for also being active contributors and mentors in your communities, and to please encourage everybody else to join. Can we get a big thank you for all of the people here? A nice round of applause.